The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected yet another firearms restriction. The top court has struck down the Trump-era ban on BAM guns or stocks, which enable semi-automatic rifles to fire at speeds rivaling those of machine guns. The Supreme Court has upheld a lower court's decision that backed the petitioner challenging the ban. The High Court had found the Trump administration did not follow federal law when it banned BAM stocks.
The Supreme Court's conservative majority found that the Justice Department under President Trump had overstepped its authority when it classified bump stocks as illegal machine guns. That was a change from previous administrations. The High Court found that bump stocks don't qualify as machine guns because each pull of the trigger still discharges only one round, even if those rounds are coming very quickly.
The ban was imposed after the devices were used during 2017 mass shooting in which 58 people were killed at a Las Vegas country music festival. At the time, the Trump administration sought the ban in the interest of public safety.
We faithfully followed your leadership by making clear that bump stocks, which turn semi-automatic weapons into machine guns, are illegal. We all remember what happened in Las Vegas on October 1st, and I don't have to recount that horrific day. But the shooter that day used a bump stock to accelerate the carnage.
Bump stocks are devices that can be attached to semi-automatic rifles to fire as fast as machine guns. The devices can enable a semi-automatic rifle to fire hundreds of rounds a minute. Remember, machine guns have been banned for most people since the 1930s. Peter Kuznick is a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. He is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Professor Kuznick, welcome to the show. What do you make of this ban? Do you think it will aid in efforts to control guns or firearms in the U.S.? And now that it has been rejected, how does that affect the gun laws debate?
The United States is awash in guns. This is only going to make the situation worse, make it more dangerous. Why should individuals need these machine guns? Certainly not for hunting, not to protect themselves. These are weapons for mass murder. We look at the numbers in the United States. Right now, there are 393 million guns in the United States. For every 100 people in the United States, there are more than 120 guns. You compare that with India, which there are 71,000 guns, or 71 million guns in India. So there's 5 guns in India for every 100 people, 120 guns in the United States for every 100 people. We have so many shootings, so many murders, and Americans are frightened. You look at what Donald Trump is saying now. He talks about this epidemic of crime. Crime is actually down in the United States. But because there are so many guns, the death rates from guns is way up, and the shootings from guns are way up. So the situation is only getting more and more dangerous, and is protected by this fraud that the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution somehow protects, allows the government, bans the government from limiting people's rights to own guns. Right. The reality is just the opposite. As Richard Nixon appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Warren Burger, said, this idea that the Second Amendment protects these gun rights is the biggest fraud ever perpetrated against the American people. It's a fraud. It's a hoax. But this is what the Republicans run on, and this creates a very dangerous situation in the United States.
Professor, how much of a setback will this rejection of this ban be on the United States? Because I have read that machine guns were banned for most people since the 1930s. How do they still get access to machine guns now?
Well, what the Supreme Court is arguing, that this is not technically a machine gun. It does the same things that machine guns do. It allows you to shoot off hundreds of rounds, hundreds of bullets within a minute. So does anybody really need that to protect themselves? We have a situation now where 43% of American households own a gun. The Americans are very frightened, paranoid. There's something crazy about this American love of guns, and it creates a very unsafe situation. Visitors from around the world are fearful of coming to the United States because there are so many guns. The police are worried when they make arrests because they don't know who owns these guns. It just creates a very dangerous situation, this American obsession with individual gun rights and gun ownership.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. I've been talking to Professor Peter Kuznick, who's a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. Professor, as always, thank you for talking to us today.
My pleasure.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.